The Extra Point with Ryan Justice is sponsored by The Phone Medic. For the best in cell phone, tablet, or laptop repairs, The Phone Medic is the only choice for you. The Phone Medic also offers gaming PCs and laptops for both gamers and everyday users. Visit one of the 3 Phone Medic locations in Amarillo, Canyon, and their new location in Lubbock today. Hello, football fans! Welcome to The Extra Point with Ryan Justice.
"14 weeks in, 4 more to go before we reach the playoffs." Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Extra Point. Yes, it is Wednesday night. It is the old time slot. It's the holiday season, things kind of get a little hectic. So hopefully you guys, everyone can hear me well enough and everything. So just checking mics and stuff. But be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Get the notifications. Get the updates, whenever we go live. Hit up the Twitch. Hit up the YouTube. And, of course, hit up the Facebook. And then go like our sponsor, the Phone Medic of Amarillo, Canyon, and Lubbock. If you need help with any laptop, PC, gaming, console, phone, tablet repair, go check out Gabe at the Phone Medic of Amarillo, Canyon, and Lubbock. And I want to introduce my co-host for the evening, the one and only Andrew Martinez. Andy, how's it going, sir?
Good, man. How are you on this Wednesday?
Oh man, it's the old time slot, getting like old times, getting all this stuff going on. But man, hey, it was a crazy week this past Sunday. There was a lot going on. My team was on the bye week, but I mean, still a lot to watch as we get closer and closer to playoff time.
Yeah, a lot of close games. I mean, it's now we're coming down to the wire of these teams. A lot of these teams are in a must-win mode. If they lose one game, they're out. So it's a crazy time here in the NFL in these last few weeks.
Yeah, now it's time to start putting all the papers up on the wall and the string and doing the math, and this team clinches if this team scores this many points and things like that. But it's a wild time. I love, the end of getting towards the stretch run of the season. It's always fun. We're going to start with our hot topics tonight. A lot to talk about. And this one, we're actually not going to start in the NFL. This one's a rarity. We're kind of going to the college level. Today, Bill Belichick agreed to become the head coach of UNC, going to Tar Heel country. Tar Helia, as they call it. The quote I first learned that from JR. But Bill Belichick going to college, one of the major pieces in the NFL head coaching cycle is taken off the board. First off, I want to ask Andy, what are your thoughts on Bill Belichick going to college, and then the second, how is this going to affect coaching searches around the league?
I think it really shakes up a lot because he has. I think him going to the college is definitely going to be a transition for him. Going to some place like North Carolina, which hasn't really had any kind of mainstream success in a long time. I think it's going to be different. I think he said publicly that he wants to bring more than just a winning program. He wants to be able to have the overall around athlete and have the connections that he has to get guys into the NFL and be successful with it. Maybe not just as a great football player, but a good education, everything else around it, and give them a solid chance that maybe other programs don't have. And so I think with a name like his, it's going to bring some people. It's going to bring I think it's going to have a lot of families start to head out there and give it maybe a little bit of that, not quite as the the entertainment as like a Deion Sanders, but again, he has a great name. Again, he has all those all the Super Bowl wins and has been successful for a long time. So it's wild. I never thought we'd see it in the college game for sure. But yeah, I think that shakes up a lot of teams and a lot of speculation, because again, when you have all these teams, however many teams are going to have a coaching, people are saying anywhere from between 9 and 12 openings. He's always up there in that, where could he go? But now that piece off the chessboard, I really think that kind of opens up a lot of things for guys that we may not expect to get jobs, where we could have easily put in a Bill Belichick.
Yeah, I look at this and I think I almost think it's a reflection of last year. And Belichick's always been kind of a guy who's been very he likes to anticipate things. And I think the fact that he interviewed twice with Atlanta last year and didn't get the job. I want to say that the NFL can be very trendy and it can speak to you in a lot of ways with who isn't hiring you, especially if you're just kind of out there in the ethos, just kind of floating along, waiting for somebody to pick you up. And it's not like Bill Belichick needed anything, but I think it was, to me, last year was without Bill Belichick, who is who's a head coach that probably has the most Super Bowl rings out of anybody. I think it was pretty telling that nobody was falling all over themselves to come get him. And to me, that was a very loud rebuke of the Patriot way.
Yeah,
And
and I think also on that is also you know, with team owners of how much does Bill want to be able to give and take in that.
yeah,
Again, Robert Kraft let him do whatever. By the end, it was his show. I don't know how many other owners. Again, people have always said, put him in Dallas, but Jerry's never going to never
no,
going to have that kind of control. So, maybe he realized with the owners the way they are, maybe he's just out.
I think he was looking at kind of the landscape of what the NFL coaching cycle was going to look like, and I don't really think any of the jobs were that appealing to him. And honestly, I would say it was almost a natural transition for him to go to college because he can have complete control over that team. I know you
Mhm.
got transfer portal, NIL, all that other stuff to deal with. It's not as bad as I'll say. I guess it's not as structured as you would see in the NFL with like free agency and salary caps and things like that. He really kind of doesn't have a salary cap in at UNC. I saw that their NIL I believe limit went up from 4 million to 20 million to accommodate Bill Belichick. So, you get 5 times the NIL money, and that's going to be attractive to young recruits, and especially if he is genuinely setting a program up for guys to go into college, for guys to get into, or not college, for guys to get into the NFL and have a chance to succeed. And legit, I mean, I don't think there's any better person to prepare you for what it's going to be like in the NFL than Bill Belichick. And I mean, he's going to coach them hard, which, we saw guys like Nick Saban have a lot of success with that. But Saban got out right as NIL was just really starting to go crazy. And we've seen kind of just how that has, I would say, it's leveled the playing field in college. You don't have just this group of 3 or 4 teams that is just dominating. I mean, you saw with the way the playoffs were seeded. There's some teams that you never thought would even come close to sniffing the college football championship, and now they're in and around that. And I think a guy like Bill Belichick, you saw what the recruiting for Colorado did after they got Deion Sanders. I think it's going to have the same effect. And honestly, with some of these coaches who aren't really getting their opportunities in the NFL anymore, I could see an influx of them going into college. And
Yeah, and also, I think that also with that, I think you could, maybe as the Patriot way hasn't been successful, in that thinking of the way the coaching has, we haven't seen a whole lot of Belichick disciples, be real successful. So maybe he can develop coaches a new way, that also too, and make a new path that way, and kind of maybe redeem a little bit, on the coaching side of things.
speaking on that, I think because you obviously was somebody who's got the gravity of a Bill Belichick when it comes to football. Um, you hear some things. I heard one of the things that he submitted. I guess he's one of the only guys that could tell a Division I program something like this, where he had like a 400-page. The best word that they used for it was Bible to meticulously lay out in detail what he was going to do with this program. And one of those things was, I guess part of it was in his contract, was to name his son Steve as his head coach in waiting for if Belichick ever does go back to the NFL, which is interesting, because he had his son on his staff in New England, and amongst our group, he's kind of commonly known as Squidbilly. Look very closely at Belichick's son. I am going to miss the Steve Belichick faces on the sideline. I'm not going to lie. We have to tune into some UNC games for that. But yeah, I mean, he's got his son Steve in waiting for him when he eventually leaves back if he leaves back to the NFL. So that's one to keep an eye on. But Belichick's got a job. He's going back to campus. Next up on Hot Topics, this was one that kind of started breaking in the last couple of days. Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. If you want to talk about Philadelphia playing the hits, quarterback and wide receiver, alleged beef. Now that some of the guys have come out and said there's no heat, we know how that goes. But Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown, man, you hear that there's some beef between the number one wide receiver in Philadelphia and their franchise quarterback.
Yeah, if it's to believe, hopefully, they can whatever. Don't get me wrong, with Philly has not been super successful with without AJ Brown, so they've been way more successful with him than without him. Again, I think he's up there, top 5, and he still missed games.
Yeah.
So like, he's there. So again, maybe you have that beef, but if you can keep it on the field, if you can keep it off the field, and keep it together, don't let that, don't let that train come off the track, then, you hate each other anywhere else, but if you can win games, man, keep it going.
I mean, that's kind of the big question that has surrounded Philly is locker room drama. You had the Nick Sirianni stuff where he's in there where he's on his sideline talking trash to his own fans. And then you've got this now. You even had Donovan McNabb and T.O. weigh in on this, and that was surprising. Again, talking about playing the hits, but I think a lot of this, this kind of got brought up in our morning group chat discussion. I wonder if this has something to do with the offense now running through Saquon Barkley and not necessarily being a focal point, with A.J. Brown being like the main focal point of this offense, because Saquon Barkley has come in and this team now it goes where Saquon goes. And if he's not at the front of the wagon pulling everything, this team kind of falls apart. And I feel like that kind of goes back to what A.J. Brown was frustrated with in Tennessee, where the offense was running through Derrick Henry. And he wants to be the guy in the spotlight, and he can't be that when you've got a running back that can just put the whole team on his shoulders.
I mean, yeah, I think egos need to be checked a little bit. When you have a very qualified MVP candidate on your team, again, if he's in the talks, he should be in the talks, by everyone, should be to get that MVP. When you have that guy on your team, then yeah, I mean, it's going to run through him, and maybe we all have to check egos a little bit, but it has to, hopefully they, like I said, they keep it together. I know they've come out and been like, hey, oh, don't worry, we're cool, but that's fine. Keeping the locker room on the field. I think Jalen Hurts has been making the smart plays. He hasn't really, done some of, he's not trying to force things. He's really found his flow, between the pass and the run game, and even himself, taking off when he needs to. So I think between it all, everyone's kind of going to see more of that share than just become the AJ Brown show.
Yeah. And I mean, they're winning games, and they're very close to, one Detroit slip up, and they've got a first round bye, and one or two Detroit slip ups. And that, honestly, that could very easily happen with as aggressive as Dan Campbell is, but that could easily happen. And you don't want to be sitting there at the number 1 seed with your team fighting amongst themselves. That to me just spells disaster in the playoffs. But we'll keep an eye on that one. This, I kind of snuck it in as an extra game reaction, but it has been something that people have been talking about all week. The Bills and the Rams. Holy crap, what a shootout. And it's frustrating. This frustrates me with the Rams, because the Rams will go out and have an amazing game like this and look like the team that won a Super Bowl a few years ago. and then they will just go out the next week and play down to their competition and just absolutely look like a completely different team than they were the week before.
Yeah, the consistency is good. Is definitely the killer when it comes to the Rams. If they can keep that in check, then we'll see what happens. But again, I think it also showed that, hey, man, on the other side with Buffalo, I mean, it can be the Josh Allen show. Even in a losing effort, Josh Allen looked fantastic. He had 3 passing touchdowns and 3 rush, like come on, man. That was the Josh Allen that we've seen, years past, who puts every game on his back like that. It shows why he's also in that talk for the MVP candidate, and why the Bills can be scary, why they're all behind him, because he's willing to get in the trenches and make it happen. And for them to be down by so much and then make 21 points in the fourth quarter and try to come in as close as they did is incredible.
The thing that concerns me with the Bills, though, is because as good as this Bills team has looked, this is another game that the Bills have gone on the road and lost to a team that they are supposed to be way better than. And I'll admit that about the Texans. The Bills, and you say what you want about them back in week 4, they're still a better team than the Texans. They were a much better team than the Rams are and have been this season. But the Bills, I know Josh Allen. Different Josh Allen performances, but it's still the Bills go on the road and can't get it done. And spoiler alert, Josh Allen's somewhere on the up list this week. But he goes out there, he throws for 342, 3 rushing touchdowns, 3 passing touchdowns. Khalil Shakir had a great game, but Matthew Stafford got on his horse again, and him, Puka Nacua, and Cooper Kupp just lit up this defense. And to me, this kind of spells some concern with the Bills going into the playoffs. You heard Tom Brady going off on their handling of the QB sneak at the goal line, where they very easily could have gotten the ball back with a decent amount of time left to go down and possibly win this game. And those are the type of issues. Those are the little mistakes, not only just in a regular season game, but definitely in a playoff game, that are going to be the moment where you go, they just lost this game.
Yeah, I think those are definitely going to be the issues for sure. I think it's good. It's hard, because again, it's hard when you put up those kind of numbers and you're still in a losing effort like that. But you're going to have to shore up on the defense for sure, because some of these teams are going to expose that.
Yeah,
and I think it's going to be. When you have teams like, again, we'll probably go over this, I know we'll go over here a little bit against the Lions, who are going to hit you, Jared Goff's, being real accurate, who's don't let him pick you off, and then they have a run game that's scary. So that defense is really going to have to step up, because Josh Allen, he can't stop the ball too. He can he can keep the offense going, but you're going to have to get
he can throw and catch his own pass, but he can't play defense. And now the Bills are 2 games back of the Chiefs for the number 1 seed in the AFC. We'll get to the official game reactions. Guys, please like, share, subscribe, sound off in the chat. We want to hear you rep your team. Make some comments. If you think something we said is stupid, let us know. If you agree, tell us. But we want to hear you guys sound off in the chat. Let us know. But we love hearing from you guys as well. Now we get to the official game reactions. We started off Thursday night, Lions and Packers. Man, this one was a game. I think this was a game that a lot of people were talking about how aggressive Dan Campbell was in this game, and it really just kind of defined what this Lions team is capable of.
I think so too. Again, I think he went 4 or 5 on 4th down. That obviously that last 4th down. We hear now that he was going to kick the ball, like they were going to punt it, and then Jared Goff was like, "Oh man, I thought I really want to do that," and Dan was like, "Okay, if you feel it, let's do it," and they went for it and made it, and even in a falling effort, he gets the handoff straight to the gut. That could have been so bad. But I mean, it's that risk reward thing again. The one time it didn't work out for him, should you really have gone on your own on your own side of the ball for that fourth down? Probably not. So it didn't work out. But every other time, he said that. I mean, that's what's scary about them. They are a 4-down team. For any defense, that's hard, man, because not only we stopped them, they're going to kick it. No, they're not. Now you're going to play an extra down against them, and you're already tired. If you do that in a drive a couple times, that defense is worn out.
The thing about that is, though, I'm glad you brought up them going for it on fourth down from their own 31. Is that once you get into the playoffs and you don't get it, you do something like that and you don't get it, it can turn a game just like that. And I mean, it could go from some of these teams. It could go from 1 touchdown to all of a sudden now you're down by 2. And you could have avoided one of those touchdowns if you'd have just punted it away and let your defense play, especially with the injuries that they got on defense and the missing pieces. If you had Aiden Hutchinson still there, I would argue you might be a little bit better off doing something like that because you've got just an absolute beast on the other side of that line. But he's not there, and you've got injuries in your secondary. You've got weaknesses on that defense that can be exposed, and teams are going to let you have it in the playoffs. Maybe not in the first or second round, but if you get to the NFC Championship, that could cost you a trip to the Super Bowl. And, I mean, Goff played another really good game, 3 touchdowns, interception. They did hold Jordan Love to 206 yards, but this is, again, a team much like the Eagles where they go where Josh Jacobs goes, and he had 3 touchdowns on the night.
I think it also really showed that Green Bay is this dark horse in the NFC. I think that again to trade blow for blow the way they didn't to come down to that fourth down. If they could have stopped him on that fourth down, man, it's a different game at that point. But it's for this team that we weren't sure when Jordan Love went down early, to still be here, to still be in that playoff, in that playoff picture, man. I think they're that dark horse who could definitely make an upset, for a couple teams in the playoffs.
I like them. I do agree. I like them as the dark horse, but I think one thing that could be holding them back is there are just some better quarterbacks in in that conference. And there are some quarterbacks that clearly have an advantage over that I would take over Jordan Love in that conference. I would take Hurts. I would take Goff. I would take I may even take Kyler over Jordan Love at certain points this season. But I feel like they got to shore up the defense a little bit. You can get by with, I know it's a negative word. You get by with game manager type of play from Jordan Love, and then of course Josh Jacobs just leading the train. But the defense has to get better as well, because again, you let a team go 4 or 5 on fourth down, that's a problem, and that's going to get you beat in the postseason.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they could definitely again, I think they could play that upset for sure, but we'll see. If they can tighten things up, man. It's that Green Bay teams. They're scrappy, man. They are a scrappy team.
Well, we go from just a pair of scrappy teams to one team that has a creepy sandwich commercial and another team that's got a guy trying to be the gives the epic sports speech in a movie every time he gives an interview. Browns and Steelers played, and the Steelers, of course, absolutely kind of flexed their muscles a little bit on Cleveland. Cleveland, they beat the Steelers in the previous game in the snow. They come to Acrisure on a pretty, fair weather day, and the Steelers let them have it. Russell Wilson had a good day, manageable, but not, he wasn't necessarily jumping off the page, but the Steelers just go in there and get it done. And Cleveland is just, Cleveland's just there at this point. They're just there suffering for all of their bad decisions. You got Deshaun Watson posting pictures from vacation while this team is just out there drowning. And, Jameis Winston, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. They still haven't gotten Nick Chubb going. And again, just kind of an up and down pedestrian day. Nothing special from the Pittsburgh offense. They just kind of let Cleveland beat themselves and let the defense go out there and handle business for them. I guess my question for this is, are the Steelers, do you take them seriously as far as getting to the Super Bowl?
Man, it's hard. That's a. I don't know if they can make it to the Super Bowl, but I mean they're showing that they can. Again, they're 5-1 at home. They're that team. Mike Tomlin's really got them going, and their last. I mean, man, they've only lost one their last 6 or 7. I think they can make a run at it, man. I think if they keep playing, a smart offense the way they have been, if they're not doing anything flashy, nothing super exciting. They're not really any highlight reels. They're just getting it done. That defense is, sticking true to that Pittsburgh, that Steelers style, and just making teams have to grind for it. We'll see what they can do though. I'm not sure they can make it to the playoffs, but I think they're going to be up there.
They're in line for a home playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
The game that they have, not this coming Sunday, but the one they have next Saturday against the Ravens, is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And I know some people were talking about, this Philly game doesn't really matter. No, the Steelers need as many wins as they can get, I feel like, to kind of keep pacing the AFC and really just kind of start distancing them. The more they can put distance between themselves and the Ravens, I think the better. And
These next 3 games are hard for them. They go Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs.
Yep.
That's a tough one.
All the teams that are playing on Christmas Day, which are Texans, Chiefs, Steelers, Ravens, they all play 3 games in 11 days.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to it because we got Dolphins, Chiefs, Ravens.
Oof.
Yeah, it's going to be brutal, man. But they all play 3 games in 11 days. These are going to be some beat up teams by the time we get to Christmas. And the Steelers, I feel like, are the ones who are best suited for it because their defense is physical. They're not asking a whole lot from their offense, which their offense has issues of its own. You kind of don't know what the loose cannon that George Pickens is going to do in a game from time to time, if he's going to run his route or if he's going to run down and start a fight. But not, get Najee Harris going, get Freiermuth going, let Russ be efficient, but not really try to put the game on his shoulders and then let the defense go out there and eat. It's kind of been the game plan. And I feel like they can do that. To me, they're the best suited to really beat up on the Chiefs and Ravens. And I want to see how they handle the Eagles too. I think all 3 of these games are huge tests for the Steelers coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. If they can, if they come out 2-1 in these next 3, that's pretty good, man. If they come out a positive in these next 3 games, I think they have a good chance.
So we move out west. We go to the Cardinals and the Seahawks, and this was a pivotal game in the NFC West. And the good Seahawks decided to show up in this game, and the bad Cardinals decided to show up in this game. I thought this was going to be a really close game. Seattle just started running away with it, and they just started kind of flexing their muscles a little bit. Zach Charbonnet really took over this game with over 100 yards. And the Cardinals really just couldn't get anything going. Kyler couldn't get really get going. They weren't getting, you weren't seeing a lot out of Trey McBride. Staples like James Conner weren't really doing much, although Murray was the leading passer in the game with 259 yards. But the 2 interceptions were big, and Seattle was able to capitalize on them.
Yeah, I mean, this is the Seattle team that, like you said, this is the good Seattle team when they show up, kind of like the Rams. That's how this West has been. If the solid teams show up, whichever team, the good team is going to show up the most this season, who's going to win the West. But I mean, Geno Smith, looked good. Every part of it looked good. They got that early lead and just stayed with it the entire game, and made this kind of explosive. This high energy Cardinals kind of just mellow out. Again, it's the same joke that Kyler Murray hasn't won since the new Modern Warfare drop. So I'm just I'm just saying, Call of Duty needs to start, dropping in the summer if the Cardinals want a chance to win, and go to the playoffs. But I think Seattle, they're on pace to win the West right now. They're 2 games up, and so I think as long as they continue to show solid performances, they'll still be there.
Yeah, I just see the disconnect. I almost feel like there's a disconnect between Kyler and Marvin Harrison, because they'll have one game where Marvin Harrison just takes it over, and then they have another one where they just, like this one, Harrison only had 4 catches, 49 yards on 8 targets.
Mm-hmm.
But Kyler and Trey McBride have really started to click. He had 7 catches, 70 yards on 14 targets, no touchdowns, but he's really been the guy that Kyler, I feel like, has started to really click with over their top 5 draft pick wide receiver. But I do want to say this. The West, I can't tell if the West is the worst division in football or the most competitive, because nobody wants to seem to take first place and just really run with it.
Yeah, you don't have, the West is probably where you don't really, again, every team, is, just under 5 or just barely, just over 500. No one's at the bottom of the barrel. So, it's better than, if you start looking at other divisions. But yeah, it's like I think if you look in the division, most everyone, I think Seattle has the best record, but not by a whole lot. Everyone's kind of traded wins and losses except for, really us. The Niners really haven't traded a whole lot. We've kind of lost at most everyone. In the division, we keep blowing these leads, but so it's hard to say. It's a real weird. It's a real weird in the West. It's not that the season where you had the Seattle with the losing record win. It's just because all 4 teams really sucked.
Here's one of the big things. Here's one of the big things that I think has really been helpful for Seattle. They're 5-1 on the road. And that's and they're actually 3-4 at home. So going on the road seems to really help the Seahawks going into other places and playing. They seem to really be a lot more prepared for that. And that to me is what really would seal a division. And that may be what it comes down to in this division is, where are you winning the games that you're not supposed to win? And a lot of times that's on the road. So, but we'll keep an eye on that. We'll stay out west, but we'll go to the AFC West. We had the Sunday Night Football matchup. Man. Yeah, I know that reaction. The Chiefs get away with it again. They don't get off the upright to go through.
It's the Jesse Pinkman. He can't keep getting away with this. It just can't happen. He can't keep getting away with this. Again, you see the two 12-1 teams, and they are 100% different teams. Again, the Chiefs are scraping by every game. Somehow, either, again, don't be wrong, the Chargers didn't play well in the beginning at all. The first half, again, they didn't score anything. So I get that. They have to make this comeback, but the Chiefs should have taken advantage, and they didn't. They kept him in this. They let him keep it in this game, and they, again, last bank shot off the side of the post and in. It's a wild thing that they're 12-1.
Hey guys, be sure to shout out in the comments. Let us know. Rep your team. Shout out. Let us know what you guys are thinking and feeling too. But yeah, the Chiefs, man, they're just. I don't know how they keep getting away with it. And it just feels like the coin is just falling on heads. They keep calling heads, and that's the way the coin keeps landing every time. This is another game where the Chargers did hold the Chiefs under 20 points, though, and kept it in 1 score, which I felt like the matchup between the lines of the Chiefs and the Chargers really favored LA. And you saw that. They were able to collapse the pocket on Mahomes quite a bit. They were able to really let this Chiefs offense stutter at times. I think if they would have gotten a few more turnovers, this probably would have been a game where the Chargers could have capitalized a little bit more. But the Chiefs do have a decent defensive line, and they were able to disrupt Herbert at times where he couldn't really get the ball out as fast as he wanted to or get it going. You could tell this was a game where the Chargers were definitely missing Dobbins and they were definitely missing McConkey. I think if they would have had those two out there, this would have been a win for LA.
Yeah, I think so. I think you can really, I agree. I think with missing those two vital parts of your offense is, a detriment for sure. And, again, the Chiefs did just enough to make sure that they won that game. 7-0 at home, man. Like,
yep.
Man.
When your lead rusher only has 36 yards, that's definitely not a good thing. And then on top of that, Herbert gets hurt and he was out of practice today. You had a Heineke come in, which Heineke is a pretty serviceable backup. He was starter at one point in this league, but he's not Justin Herbert, and that's going to be one thing you got to monitor as we go down the stretch as well. Is the health of Justin Herbert and how quickly he can get back on the field and get to making a difference. We wrapped up Week 14 Monday night with the Bengals and Cowboys, and I mean, it was already a game where you were like, okay, Joe Burrow is going to show out, but these defenses were not going to be great. I did not expect that game to end the way that it did, though.
I mean, if that doesn't sum up the Cowboys season of a team, you posted on Facebook, yesterday of when did we see a team who blocks the punt and then miss it, like touches it, bounces off of him, and the kicking team receive, it's like gets it and it's a live ball and they go down and score.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the most, I believe they've done it before against Cincy, and not the Leon Lett one. I believe they've done it before against Cincy, and then you've got the aftermath of it, of Jerry Jones dressing down the special teams coordinator and then having to go out and apologize for it. Now the Cowboys have all sorts of questions that they got to answer. And, you had Stephen Jones's comments today where they were basically saying, hey, we may take the same approach to free agency next year that we did this year because of cap space. Well, guess what? You just signed two of your quarterback and your receiver to two of the top contracts in the league, and you're probably going to end up having to make some pretty tough decisions this coming off season. I don't think it's going to get better for Dallas, but I mean, it's not like the Cowboys had a bad game. That really was just a bad break. I really thought this was going to end up heading to overtime. And
yeah, I thought so too, for sure.
Yeah, and it was just, to me, this is a really bad indictment on how bad the Bengals defense is. Because if they couldn't stop Cooper Rush, and they were keeping it close with him, he had 2 touchdowns and an interception. And again, Joe Burrow played out of his mind, but they were keeping it, letting the Cowboys hang around up until that mistake. And who knows, if they'd gone to overtime, the Cowboys may have snuck away with this.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, that last play to watch Bart Simpson throw it to Lisa for the touchdown, I'm just saying, that was something I never thought I'd see. And to see that in the in the game. What? I'm just saying.
What's been going on in the group chat. Don't pile on. Don't pile on. Well, you were sitting back there smiling the whole time. Don't pile on.
Oh man, it's great. It's great.
Oh, trust me, I'll have something to say about that.
But yeah, I think I think it sums up the Cowboys this season of course that's what happened.
Yeah,
everything else, of course that's what happened. That's how that game ends. It
was one of those things. They finally managed to get the roof open. They finally managed to get the roof open without anything trying to kill somebody, and then they blundered. They ended on one of the worst blunders that you can have. I mean, hey, buckle up, Cowboys fans. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
For the Bengals, again, this is you talk about the Cowboys losing the way their season, just kind of summing up their season. This game, you could say the same for Cincy as well, because again, it was another game where Joe Burrow played out of his mind, but you felt like there were parts of this team that were letting Joe Burrow down. And the defense, especially Trey Hendrickson, again, it's Trey Hendrickson, maybe Mike Hilton, and a bunch of dudes. And there has to be a major overhaul on this defense in the offseason if Cincy wants to even sniff the playoffs again.
Mm-hmm.
So I think,
yeah, it's definitely a weird season for Cincy for sure.
Well, that'll do it for game reactions, guys. Coming up next, we're going to go 3 up and 3 down. But again, for those of you, please take a look at our sponsors. Hey, Hunter, how's it going? Oh, it's fine. Good to see you guys. Thank you guys for joining in. Please sound off in the comments. Let us know. Rep your team. We love to hear from you guys. But again, go check out our sponsors, Phone Medic of Amarillo, Canyon, and Lubbock. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Get notifications when we go live usually every Tuesday. But of course, it is the holiday season, so schedules do kind of get shuffled around a little bit. But we are going to go 3 up and 3 down. So we're going to pick 3 guys that we want to highlight this week, or teams, players, alternate broadcasts, whatever you guys want to highlight. But we're going to start with the up list. First up on the up list, Zach Charbonnet, 22 carries, 134 yards, 2 touchdowns. He broke out against the Cardinals this past weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, something they needed, something to see. And, if he can stay consistent like that, then, Seattle's going to go a long way into the end of the season.
And with Kenneth Walker not playing, they needed something from him to really step up and bolster that run game, and to the tune of 134 yards and 2 touchdowns, which I believe is a career best game for him. That's really going to be what helps Seattle down the stretch. Is they got to be able. They can't let it all be on Geno Smith. They really need that run game to step up. Next up on the up list, Miami Dolphins. I know that you let them play. You let the Jets come back and you had to play them to overtime. Give them credit. This was the one game this year that the old Aaron Rodgers showed up in, and I mean, they have been on a streak these last couple weeks. Ever since Tua came back, I'm looking at their last couple games right now. But they're on a 1-game win streak. They've been up and down, but this is a Dolphins team that looks like they've kind of risen out of the ashes with the return of Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah, I think with him, being here, I think that it really shows, man. I think it shows that he is that difference maker when it comes to this team being successful. Again, if he hadn't come back, we wouldn't be talking about him. They wouldn't be anywhere close to doing anything. And I think it really shows that he can, again, how much this team, needs him is built around, him and what he can bring to this offense.
I think this game, for the first time was where I started to see Miami look like the team that we kind of saw last year at times. Maybe not the team that was dropping 70 points on people, but this really explosive, high octane type of team. Now I know 14 carries for 24 yards for Devin Achane is not ideal, but when you've got Tua throwing the ball the way that he did, when you've got Tyreek going for 115, Jaden Waddle going for 99, those are the type of performances that can really overcome inefficiencies at other positions. Mm-hmm. So, but Miami on the up list, and of course I kind of foreshadowed this, but this week's top of the mountain goes to Josh Allen, man. I'm happy I didn't play against him this week in my fantasy league because he had almost 60 points, setting fantasy records all over the place. For those of you who did have Josh Allen, kudos to you. In fact, the guy in our league who did have Josh Allen scored over 200 points, and he had multiple guys over 20 points on his team. Needless to say, he won his game. But yeah, I mean, what a performance by Josh Allen, and they lost.
Yeah. I think even in a losing effort, it showed how he's still in that MVP conversation. Again, Okay, fine. We're gonna put this team in my back. We've seen this from Josh Allen where he does put the team in his back and comes out a lot worse for wear on it. And I think he's still gonna come out pretty good on this one. He's not gonna become beat up. He's not going to he's still looking good, after this, even in the loss, still looking pretty solid, man. But yeah, it just shows like when he wants to become Superman, he can.
And I think that's key because these last few years down the stretch, Josh Allen's been beat up. He's been dealing with something in one way or another. And this is the first time I think we're really getting a fully healthy Josh Allen at the key points in the season. And for him to put up numbers like that, I mean, it's hard to argue against him for MVP. Him and Saquon, to me, are the two guys right now that are in the conversation for MVP. I don't think anyone else needs to be. It's got to be Josh Allen or Saquon Barkley. And like I said, the other things about Josh Allen in that game did not concern me. Other things around the team did. But there's no denying that Josh Allen, yeah, he deserved top of the mountain this week.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we went 3 up, and now it's time to go 3 down. And first up on my down list, I mean, I get it. It's a fun little thing to do, and people had fun with it, blah, blah, blah. I hated it. Simpsons football is on the down list this week, man. It looked like, okay, you know how you would go, Mom, I want this game. And she would go, okay, hey, I'll get you this game. And it's like the dollar store version of it. That's what that Simpsons cast looked like. It looked like, hey, we wanted an updated version of backyard football, and you got front yard American football that was just pulled off a shelf at a Dollar General. And it looks awful, man. It was
Did you watch the Toy Story one last year?
I saw bits and pieces of it. And even to me, it was just, I mean, if you're a kid and you're just looking to kill some time, maybe. But
obviously, that's what they're trying to do is try to get that demographic in there. And I think, again, where you see the technology of, we're rendering these things in real time, like how we're tracking, two football teams in real time. We're having this technology go there. I think you can, I think in these first, who knows how many times they do this. Again, next year is probably going to be, Marvel Civil War, and you'll see Captain America and Spider-Man, and who knows. I mean, that's the only franchise next that makes sense to me is you went Toy Story last year, Simpsons this year, Marvel next year. I think as the technology grows, I think it gives the, you have Nickelodeon on the other side who does all the slime and that side of it.
I'm fine with the Nickelodeon one. Like the Nickelodeon one is fun because you're actually because they'll actually break some things down and like explain it on kids' terms, and then they add in the effects and stuff. It's almost like watching WWE when they had that AR stuff that they were doing. But I'm sorry, man. I can't get behind it. It looks so bad. It looked awful, man. And I mean, you got the Madden cast coming up with Texans Chiefs on Peacock, which that'll be interesting. For me, if you're gonna do something like that, give me like an NFL Blitz cast.
Sure.
There we go. Give me like it doesn't have to be the actual players doing stuff in the in-between little while they're calling plays. Give me an NFL Blitzcast and have the players just beat the crap out of each other in between plays. I mean, let's go.
Yeah, I think, I like the ideas. Again, the whole idea is we're supposed to, we're trying to get a different audience to enjoy football and, that. And again, I think, as we start to, hammer this down, obviously not this year, in the next few years, maybe, who knows where this can go and where, what it can do. But yeah, it does look like an old PlayStation 2 a PlayStation 2 game of
like early PlayStation 2.
Mm-hmm. It's like, this is a weird license game that no one cared about, and they just made it because they put like a name on it.
When they did Simpsons wrestling,
absolutely.
That was awful. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't feeling the Simpsons football. Next up on the down list, the Arizona Cardinals. Again, they came off of a really good performance the week before the Seattle game, and then they had Seattle come into town, and they looked like a team that didn't belong on the field with Seattle, and they're in the thick of things. They're in the thick of the NFC wild card. They're in the thick of the division race. To me, that kind of was the final nail in the coffin for Arizona if they want any chance at the division.
Yeah, we've talked about it last week too. Any of these division games that are being played now are the most important thing, especially here in the West. Whoever continues to, whoever comes out top, in the most successful in the division is going to win. And it looks like right now that's going to be Seattle. They're going to have whatever tiebreakers over it, and when you have to play that math game at the end of the season when you're close. I think mathematically it's going to be real hard unless, something crazy happens. If they turn around these next 4 games and, LA, muffs it and, Seattle decides to shoot themselves in the foot, I just don't see it happening. I agree. I don't see it. It's hard to come back.
It's got to take an epic collapse from the top 2 teams because,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Rams still have 3 division games to play.
Mm-hmm.
Seattle and Arizona. Well, Seattle's only got 1 more to play. Arizona's got 2. And like I said, unless they collapse, I don't see Arizona. I see Arizona, if they get in, it's going to be barely at the end of the NFC wild card. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I I I like what they brought to the table this season. I feel like there's some pieces there that they could really get going. I feel like they got an underrated defense. For me, you gotta build the chemistry better with Marvin Harrison. Trey McBride, again, I like the fact that he's come on as a rookie and really I gotta look him up. I believe he's a rookie. But he's come in and made a difference. And I feel like he's made a bigger impact on this team than Marvin Harrison has. But gotta watch him. Yeah, Arizona's a team that I feel like is really coming up. They vastly improved over what they were last year.
Mm-hmm.
But this week's Factory of Sadness goes to the New York Football Giants. I mean, where do we start? You had the airplane before the game, calling out Jim Mara. Then you had the actual performance on the field. Then you had Malik Neighbors, who ran a wide open route. Drew Lock goes to the other side, and Malik Neighbors is just standing there in the zone with his hands up, asking where the hell that ball was going. I mean, Drew Lock then gets hurt, so you're going to have to start Tommy DeVito. Oh, hey, and on top of that, it's against the Baltimore Ravens, where you are 16.5-point underdogs. I've never seen that in the NFL. Sound off in the
Yeah.
comments. Have you guys seen a point spread like that in the NFL?
Yeah, it's pretty bad, man. It's a tough one to be in New York. It's especially if you're a football team in the New York area. I think you have a total of what, 5 wins? Combined.
I think so.
I'm just saying, like
Oh,
it's a tough one. It's a tough to be a football fan up in the New York area for sure. But yeah, they should definitely end up in that factory of sadness because it's a sad day.
I mean, they spent $750 million to get Juan Soto to the Mets. Basically, just
Hey,
move across town.
hey, there you go.
Maybe they should do that to their football team. But yeah, man, I don't know how they fix this, honestly. I mean, you've moved on from Daniel Jones. There's some promising young guys with like Tyron Tracy Jr., Malik Neighbors. They just have not been able to figure out this quarterback situation, and their defense is awful. And
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to watch the Giants, man. And I've been on their sideline twice. And it is just there's no energy. There's no energy there. Dexter Lawrence is done for the season. And he was part of what was kind of keeping that defense relevant. They were getting a lot of sacks because of him. But there's just no energy, man. You could tell it's crazier in person, but I know you could tell through the TV screen, but there's no juice on this team. And Brian Daboll will probably get an OC job somewhere, but he's going to be fired as head coach of this team. Like I really feel like he's going to be fired as head coach. Well, that does it for 3 Up, 3 Down. Now we're going to move into our buy or sell segment. This is where we're going to throw some takes at each other. And we want you guys to sound off in the comments too, whether or not you buy or sell, as Andy sits there and dies. But we're going to go buy or sell. First up on buy or sell, Micah Parsons stays a Cowboy. Buy or sell?
I'm a sell because you're not going to who's going to, you're going to have 3 players on your team, Dak, CD, and Micah Parsons. Like, I mean, that's all you can afford, or you go out and, go down to, pick one of the, 6A high schools and hire them. I mean, I bet they'd probably be cheap, like, go to Alito or something. And I don't like how are you can't afford him. I know he wants this team to be good. You hear him. He's, before this game, he's like, yeah, this is the first, this is when we make our comeback, blah, blah, blah. And, he had a sad face when they, missed the punt and stuff. And just like, I just don't know how you afford him. I don't think he's going to stay a Cowboy.
Here's my question is there going to be another team out there that puts up with the podcasting shenanigans? Is there going to be another team that wants a guy who comes on, who comes to your team probably for a hefty price tag, who is going to be on Bleacher Report throughout the week, possibly criticizing your team or causing news cycle distractions that you don't want to have?
That's true.
Mean, this could be one of those things where, you've got Stephen Jones coming out and talking about how they got to be cost effective over these possibly going into this next free agency, and it might be the next year where they go out and get guys. But it could be one of those times where you have a guy like him coming out and saying it, and then they just money whip Micah Parsons and they don't have room to go get anything else. I could totally see the Cowboys doing that. There's also rumors and stuff. By the way, I'm selling this. I'm selling this because there's going to be a team that is going to pay for Micah Parsons. Possibly the Texans, because him and CJ Stroud are best friends. And that would make for some great content. Honestly, I'm not going to lie. CJ Stroud just shutting down his wild takes at every turn. But yeah, I'm going to sell Micah Parsons being a Cowboy. He was the guy that I thought if they paid CD and they paid Dak, he was going to be the odd man out. But I think if Dallas is smart, which, I mean, it depends on the day, they trade him. They trade him and they get some first-round picks out of it where they can really start to rebuild this team and really start to get things back on track. That's the smart thing to do. I don't know if Jerry's capable of doing that.
Yeah, we'll see.
Next one, buy or sell. With all the drama that has been happening over the last couple of days within the Eagles, they've been playing really well. But buy or sell, can the Eagles take the number 1 seed in the NFC?
Man, that's a tough one. I mean, you have to – you look at it's like, man, that's a hard one. Because again, just a small loss from Detroit, and you're there.
Yep.
It's you're right, you're neck and neck, and it's you're so close. It's
doable too.
It's very doable.
Very doable. I mean, if Philly gets past the Cowboys, or if Philly gets past the Steelers, then it's Commanders, Cowboys, Giants. Whereas the Lions got to play the Bills.
And then they finished up with Minnesota.
Yeah, and I know they've wrapped up the division, I believe. I got to double check on that. I believe they've wrapped up the division, but they've got a playoff spot, but they haven't wrapped the division yet. So they're still fighting off Minnesota for the division. Yeah. And if they again, once we get into previews, we'll go into this a little bit more, but this Bills-Lions game is huge.
Man, absolutely. I mean, that's the game to watch this week, is because it has so many implications on both sides. If either team loses, man, it really shifts where you're at in the standings of things, and we were heading to the playoffs. And yeah, again, you have both the Eagles at 11-2 and the Vikings, coming on their heels. So I think the question is, I don't know if it's, I think we asked it a couple weeks ago, can the Lions stay at number 1? And man, I don't know if they can. It's a hard one to get there, man.
It is, because I mean, you're getting into the point where teams really can take advantage of the mistakes that you make, like being over aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to sell. because I think the Lions are a more put together team. They're a lot more cohesive. And the Eagles at times this past week, don't get me wrong, Carolina has kind of shown new life, but at times they have let teams that they shouldn't let hang around.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if they have the horsepower to take over the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
So, buy or sell. This one's been thrown around this week. He is a free agent after the season, but Sam Darnold stays in Minnesota. Buy or sell?
I'm gonna buy. I think that he's really kind of shown himself. I think it'd be, I think they can. I think they could franchise tag him, and I think he's gonna stay. I think he's shown, this it'd be kind of hard to this guy who's led you to, right now to 11-2 season, who can still lead you on, to let him go as like you did. It seems to, from my understanding that, the culture around him, he's definitely liked a lot more than, Cousins was before him, and, guys want to play for him. And he's really shown, he didn't turn into the pumpkin. I mean, don't get me wrong, he still has, 4 weeks to show that, but, he's had, he's had some moments where you're like, oh, but he's been able to hold back that transformation. So yeah, I'd be really surprised, man. I would definitely buy. I would be really surprised if Minnesota let him go.
I'm going to buy, but I'm going to buy with the caveat that next year's not going to be as good because he is going to have JJ McCarthy sitting there behind him, waiting for him to do it. And I think that's going to be, they'll say it won't be, but I think it's going to be a distraction for Sam Darnold. I think that's why he's playing. One of the reasons why he is playing so well this season is because he doesn't have that distraction of JJ McCarthy behind him, waiting in the wings to potentially come in and begin his career. I think Sam Darnold, I hate to say it, but he really benefited from that ACL tear in training camp. And I think next year, as soon as Sam Darnold makes a mistake or has a bad game, you're going to hear the calls for JJ McCarthy. And I think, this is the guy that saw ghosts. And I think that could get to him. And I think that if, knowing that the guy that this team has essentially pegged as the future is sitting right behind you, you're not going to get the same Sam Darnold. And it could end up that this team pays him a lot of money to stay, even if it is just for 1 year. So I can see him doing something like a tag. I can see him doing something like a franchise tag and using that kind of like a prove it deal. Like the old Kirk Cousins tag. And how many times did they use that on him? This next one, buy or sell. It is time for Michael Penix in Atlanta. Kirk Cousins over his last 4 games, 8 interceptions, no touchdowns, 0-4.
I mean, they're on a 4-game losing streak right now. Like, throw them in there, man. Again, you're not going to be the way, especially the way they've played. They're not in contention for anything. They don't really have a chance. I mean, they really have to turn around if they're going to get in that mix,
I'm going to sell because the only thing I'm saying about this selling is because if I'm looking at the NFC, they're the 9 seed right now. And they're a game back behind LA, and LA could lose one at any time. And they're also, I believe, 2 games behind the Commanders, who hold the 7 seed right now. If they weren't in contention for anything, or once they get eliminated, if they get eliminated in these next 2 games, then yes, Michael Penix needs to come in, and you need to see what you can get out of him. In the limited time he's been in there, he did well. But right now, with the fact that you are in second place in the NFC South, and this is an NFC South that is not very good, it could turn on a dime, and the Falcons could end up in first place. They're a game out. They got 2 division games to go. Tampa's sitting there in first place. And they don't play them again So I'm looking to see if Tampa's got the tiebreakers on them. Yeah, so Tampa does have the head-to-head tiebreaker on them because they won both games. But you never know which Baker Mayfield's going to show up because Baker's thrown multiple interceptions in, I believe, his last 2 or 3 games, where he's had three touchdown, 2 interception games. So, and Tampa's schedule, I don't believe gets any easier. They're really going to have to step up if they want to clamp down this division. So again, if they were out of it, if they were sitting down there with New Orleans, I would say, sure, yeah, throw Michael Penix in. Let's see what he's got. I know you paid all this money for Kirk Cousins, but there's rumors he's going to get traded after the season anyway. I would say throw him in there and see what you got because it can't be any worse than what you've gotten in these last 4 games. So,
yeah.
That'll do it for buy or sell, guys. Again, thank y'all for joining us tonight. Go again, check out our sponsors, the Phone Medic of Amarillo, Canyon, and Lubbock. If you need gaming, PC, laptop, tablet, cell phone, console, anything like that, if you need it repaired, if you need to get a new one, go to the Phone Medic of Amarillo, Canyon, and Lubbock. And again, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Get notified when we go live. Get notified when we post any little shorts. Hey, get notified when I post a new wrestling match. You guys, you can check out all the stuff on my channel over there. We're going to get into our game previews. The lines brought to you by ESPN Bet as of today. And we start off Thursday night. The Los Angeles Rams visit your San Francisco 49ers. For NFC wildcard purposes, this is a big game.
It's a huge game. Again, if any of these divisional games, the winner is, that much closer to winning that division. And because it's so tied up here, for me, I hate to say this, yeah, we had a solid win against a very dysfunctional Bears team, who knows what the Bears are doing, between, firing head coaches and offensive coordinators and Caleb Williams doing, whatever, so yeah, we did win that game, but we're also now we're playing the Rams. The Rams are coming to town after a, stunning victory, a fight against Buffalo, putting up all those points. Our defense hasn't looked great, and if that Matthew Stafford shows up, tomorrow, man, we're going to, I feel, have a hard time not feeling exposed, like we have been all season. Again, we lost to them already once, when we blew our fourth quarter lead. We blew it in the fourth quarter. It's hard to, this team just doesn't look inspired, all these injuries. It's hard to see this team right now. It's just, it's really hard. And I have a feeling, LA is going to come in here off that momentum of the Buffalo win. And, McVay's really going to, try to get everything he has to try to, get ahead in this division.
This team is looking at, and the Niners, they're looking at, they've lost 3 running backs. And they can't, again, like you said, they can't stay healthy.
Nope.
Ayuk's done for the season. You had injuries to Bosa. I believe, again, Gurindo, Mason, Christian McCaffrey, you name it. Brock Purdy at one point was dealing with something.
We just can't score in the red zone. I saw a crazy stat that we're in yard differential. We're like plus 1,000. We're second in the league in, yard differential. But we're 6 and 7. We just can't score. We can't do anything in the red zone, and then we blow leads. What leads we do take, we end up killing them in the fourth. And man,
how much of this, because this isn't going to be, to me, it's not going to be like the Rams Niners games that we're used to, where it's just physical as hell, 2 teams beating each other up, offenses out there making plays against defenses that are pretty much snarling at them. How much of this season is on Kyle Shanahan's shoulders?
I think you have the, obviously all the injuries, but, before this season, it was all, his offense was like, oh, well, his everything he does is you can just plug and play guys. You can just bring someone in, plug them into his system. That's the way it is. Apparently not. So, how much of that Shanahan system, like, is he going to have to, alter because it's, people figured it out, whether it's people figured it out or it's just not successful or it's just not the right group of guys. Like, man, something's not right, in being more, pressing, getting some of that Dan Campbell of, hey, man, we just need to get a little bit more gritty with it, instead of resting on our laurels. And yeah, I think a lot has to go on, Shanahan. I think he's really going to have to take this offseason to really, change maybe a little bit of his, coaching philosophy.
What's crazy, you mentioned that yard differential. The other thing that's crazy about this Niners team and the way that they've looked, they're the 4th ranked team in total offense in terms of yards per game, averaging about 379 yards a game. They're passing. They're passing. They're at 220 yards a game. The rush. I was looking at the Commanders. They're at 240 yards a game passing, 139 yards a game rushing. But they just, like you said, they just aren't scoring, averaging 24 points a game. And I mean, for me, my experience with, because the Texans and the Niners are so closely tied in the Shanahan system, I feel like there's parts of the system that are just way too damn fancy. Just way too much window dressing, overcomplicated, way too much of trying to be the smartest guy in the room. When you boil it down to the simplest parts of this offense and execute them the way that they need to be executed, it can beat anybody. And I get it. It is very hard to do when you've got multiple guys on IR, but I just feel like that plagues the system sometimes. And you see where they're trying to get somebody going and they're using all this movement and they just don't have the guys to execute it properly who are talented. And it sucks because it's like one guy goes down and the whole thing goes down. And it started with Brandon Ayuk, and it really hadn't gotten going because McCaffrey missed most of the year.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's safe to say you and I both got the Rams in this game.
As much as it breaks my heart, but I got to be real at some point,
Trust me, I picked against the Texans twice this year, and honestly, if this is one of those rare instances where I'm not doing a noon game on the previews, it's a coin flip for me on this week with the Dolphins. Like I said, no noon games on this one because the big games are in the afternoon, and these are really big games. Don't get me wrong, there's some big games on the noon slate, but the 2 afternoon games that everyone are going to be watching is Pittsburgh going to Philly, 5.5 point favorites in this game. But Pittsburgh, again, like we said, they've been playing really efficiently. They haven't really had to rely on their offense to just take over a game. I know Russ had the 400-yard game a couple weeks ago, but they've really been winning by just being efficient and playing good defense. And of course, you got all the, we've mentioned throughout the show, you've got all the drama going on in Philly. The big question here is does that carry over into this game?
Yeah, I think, if the Steelers could play the way they have been and really hold the Eagles down, like, man, it's good. It's gonna be a tough night for the Eagles if they let that happen. If they let them get bullied around again, I think Mike Tomlin called it the Pennsylvania State Championship game. So I think that's what it's going to be. I think we're going to kind of see these teams really show the hard hitting, hopefully a hard hitting back and forth to it again. So again, like you said, this is also one of these games that that means so much on win or loss for either team. If the Eagles lose, man, that kicks them one more behind. If the Steelers lose, that gets further behind. Like it's a game that both teams need a win to advance their playoff hopes, in a better seed.
By the way, if we're talking state championships, Houston Texans, Texas state champions. By the way,
they are the Texas state champs.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. This game has so much riding on it in terms, both these teams are division leaders. And they need a game like this to get where they need to go in the division and clinch it possibly. Philly's already clinched a playoff spot, but they need to wrap up that division. And the sooner for Pittsburgh, the sooner they can get this division wrapped up, the better.
Mhm.
I don't think they can this week. I know they can get into the playoffs this week as in terms of like the clinching scenarios. But these teams both have, again, in terms of like seeding, because they're probably looking at the bigger picture in the conference here. It's big difference between 3 and 4, I would say, and an even bigger difference between 3 and 2 and 1. Of course, 1 gets the bye. But if Philly wants to keep pace with Detroit, they gotta win this game.
Yeah.
They gotta win this game, and they gotta hope that the Bills can handle business. I'm gonna go ahead and pick the Eagles in this game because
Yeah.
home field. It's I get it. Pittsburgh can be a gritty team, but you're going to Philly. That crowd is going to be loud. Although the Steelers fans travel well, so it's going to be an interesting dynamic. But Philly, to me, I know they have the drama. They are a hot team right now, though. And again, they go where Saquon Barkley goes. And I think this line that the Eagles have, which has been a really good offensive line, I think they're going to get Saquon Barkley going and just really kind of run this Pittsburgh team into the ground.
Yeah, I can see that.
So you got the Steelers, though. What do you got?
Yeah,
what do you got for them?
I think for the Steelers, I think with that defense, if they the big thing is can you contain Barkley? That's going to be the thing. Are you going to be able to is that front line going to be able to hold him and not create those lanes and not give him the opportunity to make these breakout plays? Are you going to be able to get to Jalen Hurts? If you can get to him a few times, man, that's really going to throw this rhythm off that they've had. So yeah, I think the Steeler team is going to come into Philly pretty aggressive, I feel like, in this defense, and they're going to try to take this one away from them.
I'll say this: the fight videos coming out of that stadium are going to be interesting because
beautiful.
There's some passionate fan bases in that stadium. The other big game, to me, this is probably the biggest game of the weekend. Buffalo at Detroit. Buffalo 2 games back of the number 1 seed. They've clinched the division in the AFC East. Detroit got the playoff spot right now, sitting at the number 1 seed. 2.5-point favorites. Buffalo coming off the shootout, and they're going to have to get in another one if they want to win this game. For me, I was thinking about this today while I was getting the show together, and I was sitting there thinking Detroit cannot make the type of mistakes with the over aggressiveness that they made with the Packers. If they go for it on, I know the Packers got the ball and scored the touchdown, but they, if Buffalo stops them on these 4th downs, Buffalo's going to make them pay. It's not like this defense can stall out a drive and that Josh Allen is putting together, because Allen's either going to run it on you or he's going to throw it. He's going to throw it over the top to Cooper or Shakir or Keon Coleman. I believe Keon Coleman, they're waiting on him to get healthy. No, he played last week. But he's got a plethora of receivers, and you've got James Cook in the backfield too. So Dan Campbell's really going to have to watch it in this game with the aggressiveness, because if he gets over aggressive, the Bills are the type of team that will make you pay.
Yeah, I think so. I think that I totally agree with that. I think, they're going to have to play, on offense, they're going to have to be ready to take it down and score on every drive. They're going to have to, make those third down conversions. Don't risk it going to 4th down. Don't put yourself in that chance to, do we go for it? Do we not go for it? They're going to have to convert a lot more on those 3rd downs to make this team, because again, like you said, the Bills are going to take advantage. They're going to take advantage of you. Hopefully, you can show that, hey, we have all these weapons. Who are we going to run? Are we going to give it to, Gibbons? Are we going to give it to Montgomery? Are we going to run on the ground? Are we going to throw to, Amon-Ra St. Brown? Like, we have weapons. Jared Goff can be accurate, when he can. He's had a couple of games where he's got out of hand, but when he's accurate, man, he can be real accurate. So I think if you play smart, play aggressive, but not cross that line, that's what's going to have to keep you in this game with Buffalo.
That's the thing that I was kind of wondering myself is how many teams put on that tape of the Houston game where Goff threw 5 interceptions, and are going to start doing some of the things that Houston did to force those turnovers, because Goff might get away with that against Houston. He cannot get away with that against the Bills.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the Bills get, you're going to have Von Miller, Ed Oliver, guys like that out there. The defense is still pretty good. They're good enough to really kind of make Dan Campbell think on some of these fourth downs. But it's like you said, when Goff is on, he is on. But he can go way off sometimes, and you're not going to beat this team throwing 5 interceptions.
No.
You got the Lions in this one. I got the Bills. This one's going to be close, Andy.
Oh, that 2.5 point, is going to be real accurate. If this is done by a field goal, I would not, last second field goal by either team, I would not be surprised.
Nope.
I mean, if we're trading shots, I wouldn't be surprised we're trading shots. Each drive, we're just going back and forth. It is going to be that Bills Mafia is scary. They're walking into Detroit. It's going to be a wild. Being in that stadium would probably be the most electric thing you've ever experienced.
That would be awesome. That would be. I'm not a fan of either team, and I would want to go just to experience that. That's going to get loud.
And, I mean, this game, is a lot of people's Super Bowl pick.
Yep.
If you go like, hey, what's your pick for the Super Bowl? A lot of people are telling you a Lions Bills team. So again, this could play. This could play further down the road. If they both make it back to the Super Bowl, they meet again. So I think this has a lot of potential for, again, not only their win-loss records where they seed, can Detroit hold on to the number 1 seed, but also who knows? Could it be a rematch, for the championship down the road?
I mean, both of these afternoon games, they honestly could be Super Bowl matchups. If you're really looking at it, we could be looking at 2 of the several Super Bowl matchups that you could have. Which, keep your eye on that afternoon slate. It's not a boring afternoon slate for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Sunday night, we got Green Bay going to Seattle. Seattle is 3-point home underdogs, which makes sense because they're 3-4 at home. Green Bay has played well. They held their own against the Lions, and had they just gotten one more stop, they would have been able to walk away with a win. Again, it depends on which Seattle team shows up. If we get the Seattle team that showed up against Arizona, this could be a really good game. If we get the Seattle team that kind of withers in the big moments, Green Bay is going to run them over. I like the I think I like the matchups more for Green Bay when it comes to the run game, because we got to see if Kenneth Walker is going to play, but Josh Jacobs, again, he's going to do what he's done all season, and just if he gets to where he's just taking over this game, there's no stopping Green Bay.
Yeah, I think, especially, for me, watching Green Bay, the way they took it to, again, hung in there with Detroit and almost got it. The inconsistency of Seattle all season, I think that the Packers are really riding that road more for sure, of like, hey, we're coming for you. We're coming for it. We know that we're going to be that underdog team, but Jordan Love is really showing that, like, hey man, I'm going to help try to lead this team to be as successful, as we can be. And again, the bunch of young guys trying to, get there and make it happen for them. And, I don't know if Seattle can, really overcome that. I definitely, that's why I'm going with the Packers, because I think they're going to be the more aggressive, more consistent team than Seattle's been.
Yeah. Green Bay is really trying to keep Pat in the division. And of course, they want to get one up on Seattle in the wild card as well. And I mean, Green Bay is a much more put together team. And I'm really behind. I'm not fully sold on Jordan Love. I think he could end up being good, but I'm completely sold on Josh Jacobs.
Yeah.
And I think they're really going to do it. Monday night, we got a doubleheader. I had to pick the more attractive game of this doubleheader because I'm not. Let's be honest, they're not great matchups. I mean, not to watch them. It's your team. Go out and rally, support your team. But it is Chicago at Minnesota. The sinking ship without a captain, that is the Chicago Bears, traveling to Minnesota, which is one of the hardest places to play. Minnesota is 7-point favorites in this game. My lazy butt didn't put the over-under on there. But over-under 43.5 on this. this is a game where Minnesota, I think, is going to flex some muscles, man.
Yeah,
Aaron Jones oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I think Minnesota. You're coming into Minnesota. I think they're just gonna, just take advantage of that. I think they're 6-1 at home against the Bears, who haven't won an away game yet. So, yeah, I think they're just gonna come in and just show all the tools. We're gonna show Jefferson. We're gonna show everyone why. We're 12. We're 11-2, and why we're fighting for that number one spot.
There you go, Hunter. Not laziness, it's an oversight. There you go. I'll make sure to note that. Hey, I'll say this: it's a great week to have Justin Jefferson on your fantasy team. I'm just saying, it is playoff week. He scared me there a little bit. By the way, Justin Jefferson's on my playoff team, and we're in the playoffs right now. Me and you, Andy, we're in the playoffs, man.
We are.
We're in the playoffs, bro. We do got some money on the line in this season. Nice little pot. Nothing outrageous. No one's gonna have to get their butt waxed or anything like that. I'm not doing that. We're too spread out. But hey, playing for a little extra spending money. But yeah, again, the Vikings in this, I think the defense is just absolutely going to tear apart Caleb Williams. Yeah. And what's sad is, again, you saw how talented this Chicago team could be. And when they're good, they actually have some good moments. They actually have some good. We don't do things like that, Hunter. But when they're good, you saw some really good moments out of Caleb Williams. It hurt having to bench DeAndre Swift this week but they just haven't gotten him going. Mm-hmm. Keenan Allen's free agent. I believe he re-signed. He may be free. I'll double check, but I believe he might be a free agent next year, but he wants to come back. And you've got, again, there's a lot of talent on this team for them to be playing this way. But Minnesota, again, they're on a tear. You're in Minnesota. It is such a hard place to play, especially once they get that damn skull chant going. You and I both got the Vikings this week.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I just think they're going to show why they're there, and poor the Bears just don't have it this year. The Bears.
No, they don't. Well, that'll do it for our game previews, guys. Hey, you know what? Enjoy the games. There's a lot on this Week 15 slate. A lot going on. A quick programming note before we go. I'm sure, like I said, it's the holiday season. Me, Andy, we got families. We got a whole bunch of all that other fun stuff. So we're going to postpone this until after tonight. We're going to come back after Christmas. So, cause we got, I got anniversary and all sorts of fun stuff coming up. So, but postpone until after Christmas. Then we really get into ramping up for week 18 and the playoffs going forward. With that, though, we're going to get into the extra picks. These are done via Prize Picks. If you have not signed up for Prize Picks yet, they got a bunch of bonuses going on right now. They actually got some free squares like Patrick Mahomes. He throws for a yard and you win. You can actually multiply your money. They got some 100 times multipliers on there. I've got a season-long bet going where Patrick Mahomes throwing over 34.5 touchdowns. That one's lagging a little behind. And then CJ Stroud throwing over 4,150 yards. That one's on pace. That'll win me about $75. But you can go, hey, not bad. Not bad. I was 12 Justin Jefferson yards away from winning $90. So I almost cut him off the fantasy team for that one. I was not happy. But again, how it works, guys, is you set your own line. Is you set a lineup of you can pick two players and set multiple lineups. You pick whether or not they're going to go over a certain amount or under a certain amount, and then you collect your money. So first up on the extra picks, my extra pick this week, Bryce Young, over 205.5 passing yards against a Cowboys defense that gave up over 300 last week, and Bryce Young has been on a tear. I will say this, Carolina has lost these games, has not been because of Bryce Young.
So yeah, I mean, to see this life out of Carolina is not something I would thought when they benched him to begin with. So yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, Bryce Young Over 2.5, and he's up. I like the matchup against Dallas. Now you got to have guys like Xavier Legette hold on to the football, but and they did lose Chuba Hubbard, so I feel like they may be relying on Bryce Young's arm a little more. Next up, Najee Harris. I got him going over 57.5 rush yards. I don't believe he broke 50 last week, but he is up against a Philly defense who did kind of let the Panthers run all over them last week. And Najee Harris has a good offensive line that he's running behind. He's on track to get back on pace and go over 50, go over 60 yards, I believe, in this game. Big game, but I feel like he's going to be a key part of it. So
yeah, I think that's a good call.
And this one, I had to sneak it in because we hadn't really talked about this game this week. Nico Collins, over 86.5 receiving yards. Again, it's going to come down to him and CJ, how well him and CJ Stroud can get going. Joe Mixon, Dalton Schultz as well. The defense, I feel like, is going to hold up. So I feel like you got to have some big Nico Collins plays. He's leading the league in average yards per game at 104.5.
Yeah, I think that's a good call.
So, hey guys, y'all want to follow my advice, win some money, or lose some money, depending on what happens. Hey, I'm tied. I'm waiting on my season one to be the tiebreaker, and I may throw down a little bit this week. But that'll do it for tonight, guys. Again, we will see you guys after Christmas. Taking a little bit of a hiatus, so that way we can get schedules and everything get a little hectic. But again, thank you to our sponsors, the Phone Medic of Amarillo, Canyon, and Lubbock. Guys, go check them out. Go follow them. Go like them. Support their business as they have supported us since the beginning. And then on top of that, again, like, share, subscribe. Let people know. If I can get back into my browser. Let people know. And, let everyone know about the show as we get ramped up. Enjoy your holidays too, Hunter. Let people know as we get ramped up to go into the playoffs and get into who's going to win the Super Bowl this year. Andy, man, happy holidays, brother.
Happy holidays, my friend.
I can't wait. Until then, guys, thank y'all for joining us tonight. Goodbye and good night.